One of the people I met there is Sumeet, who is the head of IT investments of Sumeet Capital. And he has over a decade of experience in building companies, even though his background is in computer science. So, warm welcome to Sumeet.
Thank you, this is great. I think anywhere in the world you go, the energy and the buzz around entrepreneurs and technology is the same. So it's always exciting to see this, because it's the same feeling you get when you're surrounded by a group of people who are passionate about changing the world through innovation. No matter where you go, it's always the same. I find that super exciting. People have been asking me why I came here, and that's one of the reasons. It's very, very exciting to see this in another part of the world. So let me give you a quick background on me. I don't want to talk for too long and just make this more interactive. So first, I'm an engineer by training, an electrical computer science engineer, and I was involved in 2 startup companies. The first was an analytics software company. It started in 1997, which was an early web analytics company, and was eventually bought. The second company is a knowledge management company, another software company. It was bought by a company called Interwoven in 2003 for over $150 million. And then after that, I spent some time working at a big bank called Goldman Sachs, and was doing this banking investments for them. And that's actually my connection here, which I'll come back to. And I left there about 4 years ago and have been a full-time venture capitalist since. So my personal focus is everything around consumer internet, digital media, software, e-commerce. By software, I mean what I call lightweight software, things that you can, individuals can subscribe to. You don't have to have a big sales force. My firm is about 23 years old. We manage a little over $1 billion. We're investing out of a fund which is $400 million. And we invest in technology, energy, and life sciences. I invest in technology. The connection to here, when I was at Goldman Sachs, one of my colleagues who I knew very well was a close friend of mine, was a gentleman by the name of Devin Soni. We both left Goldman Sachs around the same time. We both went to venture capital firms. He left that venture capital firm and formed a Bulgarian venture capital firm called Nevik. And we're never still in touch. We share deals. And when I saw him earlier this year, he said, I'm helping to sponsor a conference. Do you want to come speak? And I said, sure. And 2 weeks later, he said, by the way, that conference is in Bulgaria. I said, oh, thank you for telling me that. So let me talk about 2 things. One, why I think Silicon Valley is so successful at creating very innovative companies. So let me talk about that. And the second thing is why I think Bulgaria, Eastern Europe, and other parts of the world become interesting for Silicon Valley. So, first topic, why Silicon Valley is so successful. I think there's 2 things, and Constantine and I were just talking about this. I think piece number 1 is heroes, and let me describe what that means. And then piece number 2 is failure. So, and I think those are 2 critical pieces that encompass a lot of other things. So heroes. Fundamentally, you need heroes who have been enormously successful, and through that success, foster and create an ecosystem to help the next generation of individuals and companies be successful. When you have an individual or a hero obtain success, around them comes new entrepreneurs, engineers, marketers. They bring with them capital, and capital follows them in dollars. And that entire ecosystem, to some extent, thrives because you start to have heroes. You also now have somebody who's charted a path to success that can help other companies evolve. And so when we were talking, there actually are, from what I've been hearing, a number of companies and individuals who have been enormously successful. And I think that it would be enormously helpful to this entire community to get them engaged, because around their engagement, you help bring this full ecosystem. And so in Silicon Valley, that drives a support network. One of the hardest parts about being an entrepreneur is the feeling of being alone. You don't have the same community of people that you do in a big company. And being a part of this ecosystem that you have, for example, in Silicon Valley, helps even the youngest entrepreneur be successful, because they can fill all of the experiences they don't have with the community around them, and they have heroes to help chart their path, help chart their way. So, that's one of the things that drives this ecosystem. And part of that is there's a university system, a venture capital system, a legal system. There's a lot of pieces that come together to make it so successful. And Bulgaria has a lot of the elements to begin that process. I think adding all those remaining pieces can be enormously successful. The second thing on this topic is failure. And I think one of the other things that makes Silicon Valley successful, one of the things that's very important, is that the cost of failure is very low. When the cost of failure is low, it encourages you to take risk. Right? If the downside is limited, then you might as well shoot for even bigger upside. One of the beautiful things about this is that when an entrepreneur fails, i.e. their company doesn't succeed, there's no ramification. There's no shame. It's a learning experience, and you move on to the next thing. There's no, and that allows entrepreneurs to focus on success. If you start to see something that isn't going to succeed, it's time to abandon it and move on to something else. It's critical in how fast things move. And so this notion of failure being totally okay, and it's part of a learning experience and part of growing and helps us evolve quicker, is I think the second piece that makes Silicon Valley incredibly successful. And by the way, within the United States, it's not replicated in many other parts of the United States. And there's other cities in the United States, Phoenix, Las Vegas, Chicago, that want to build Silicon Valleys as well. And that's, I think, one of the key pieces that are missing, is that people, the cost of failure is too high. And in part, one of the things you can do in Silicon Valley is you can fail and very quickly move on to something else without any gap in what you're doing. So that's a little bit about what I think makes Silicon Valley really successful. I know Lena was just there with a group and he observed a lot of these things, and I'd love to hear his comments on this as well, and we'll come back and do that. So that was one area that I just wanted to make a couple comments on. And the second area is, why is this part of the world interesting? And I think, in general, there's 3 reasons that any emerging market is interesting. By the way, as you can tell, I think in numbers for everything. So I have 2 reasons Silicon Valley is successful, 3 reasons why you go to emerging markets. Reason 1 is the least relevant, but I'll mention it anyways. But reason 1 is what I call going to the moon. How many people have heard about a company called Yandex? You know Yandex? Okay. So the CEO of Yandex has an interesting philosophy, which is that if your country has put a man on the moon, then you will not use anyone else's technology. The nationalism is so strong, and it's represented in the fact that you needed to get somebody on the moon, even though others have already done it. That is an inherent thread that allows you to not use anyone else's technology. And so that's 3 countries. It's Russia, China, and the United States. And you will not see a Russian use Google. You will not see it. And the same businesses are replicated in those markets. So I don't think it's that specific, but I think there's a handful of places and markets where you can take interesting businesses and virtually replicate them, cater to the local market, and not have to worry about foreign competitors. So that's reason one in general, the least relevant, I think, for where we are. So reasons 2 and 3, I think, are more relevant. Reason 2 is there are very interesting dynamics about a local market and how businesses are effective and how businesses work in a local market that I think become very interesting insights into how companies adapt and evolve to service that local market. So let me explain this with a few examples. And this is actually a conversation I was having a few hours ago with a few folks about what are the things that make Bulgaria unique, and how do companies and businesses address those unique qualities? Because I think that's really one of the things you ought to look for when thinking about something successful that you can leverage elsewhere. So a few examples. We have an investment in a company that does mobile payments. It's a company called OpenCoffee, the biggest markets in Africa. At this point, it's pretty logical. Mobile payments has evolved quite a bit, but 5 or 6 years ago, it was in its infancy, and fundamentally, it grew out of the fact that there weren't people with credit cards. There was an entire infrastructure of vendors who sold prepaid minutes, and it became a very easy and natural mechanism to facilitate commerce. Use credits on the mobile phone, and very slowly that became the default standard for how currency and how transactions were consummated. So it's something that's very unique to that market, but you start thinking, well, it wasn't something that would be obvious in the North American market because it didn't have the same dynamics. But fast forward 5 years later, that's exactly what's happening there. And so that's a very unique example. There's another example in a lot of the Asian countries. Kind of the going out, dating, bar scenes are very different than other places, which is there's a broker, more or less, who you go out to a bar or a nightclub, and this broker facilitates an exchange between a man and a woman. And sort of it's, a man will say, I'm interested in that girl, that girl, that girl, and the broker, who's usually works in the bar, and this is predominantly in Korea and Japan, right? And this broker will go talk to that girl and say, hey, this person's interested over there. Are you interested back? And you say, if she says, yes, I'm interested back, then they'll go back and tell you she's interested back, and then they put you in a separate table and you have a drink. That's the way this mechanism works. So it's very unique to this culture, this paradigm, obviously. But it started to spur people thinking about, well, there's still some of these fundamental issues of this awkwardness of this situation, and that's led to a number of companies in North America that are doing this with mobile devices, which is, well, we can use this mobile device, everyone's got a mobile phone, kind of do an electronic broker of saying, somebody's in the same place as me, I'm interested in her, her, and her, and if they message me back, I know they're interested too, and we'll meet at the table next to the bathroom.